As Caesar gets older, the white man said, would you like to go outside? And he said basically yes, taught Caesar how to sign, and he was excited to go outside on his leash. Meaning the white man allows us to do certain things as long as this is within the paradigm of his want. So he takes Caesar to the redwood forest. In doing these symbolisms, I will show you how there are multifaceted ways of looking at the message that they're showing us, because what I'm about to say about the redwood forest is biblical, and I think you can understand redwood means Red Sea. Symbolic. So when he took Caesar to this redwood forest, Caesar went wild. He knew that he was home. But then he had to come back down and go back home, get back on a leash. Caesar grew up in this redwood forest, enjoying himself because he knew that's where he belonged. But as Caesar got older, he went to the forest, and one day he was coming back and he saw a dog on a leash, a real pet, carried by some white man and a white woman. The dog barked at him and Caesar roared back at him. And the dog got a little scared and walked off. And Caesar was like, what is Caesar? Who am I? Where did I come from? This is what he asked the white man. And the white man had a leash, and Caesar was like, take the leash off of me. Don't put a leash on me. The white man opened up the back of the door to the car. Nigga, get in the back. But the nigga ain't getting the back. The nigga walked up to the door and opened the door himself. See, Caesar starts to become into a conscious being of self. He had started to become self-liberated. So when he asked Caesar, who is Caesar? The white man finally broke down and told him his history, his story. Caesar was dejected because he was basically saying, I don't look like you. I don't look like them. I don't belong. I'm wearing your clothes. But I'm behind the garments of the white man in this country because of the Ma'afa. Every black nation in this world is under the cloak and the garment of the white man. Every nation in Africa is owned by a white man or an Arab, which is all the same to me. So this is what Caesar started becoming conscious of, the consciousness of self. So then when he got home, time elapsed. Caesar was dejected. He didn't want to eat the white man's food, meaning I don't want to eat off of your plate. Malcolm X said, I am not a diner and I can't eat off the plate. No, I am not a citizen of the American nation. I'm not an American. I am a victim of Americanism. Overstand. Caesar knew he was a victim of something, but he couldn't put his finger on it. So he didn't want to eat the white man's food. He realized he didn't belong at that table. See? So when he didn't belong at the table and he knew it, he went up to his room. When the guy, the white man and the Arab or Indian woman, I'll interchange because I'm not sure again. When they were talking, she said, well, what about your father? Or basically he was saying he wanted to do this for his father, the experiments. And she said, well, what about Caesar? He said, what about Caesar? Meaning, what about the black man? I don't really care about him. I care about my own. You see what I'm saying? This is what that meant. What about Caesar? What about that black man? Everything that you do is for the benefit of another but yourself. Everything that they do is a benefit of themselves and not you. Overstand and do not get it confused. So when Caesar was upstairs, he was doing something. I forgot what it was, playing with a string or something. And the old white man went outside and wrecked the car. He wrecked the neighbor's car, and the neighbor came out running and screaming, pointing at his chest, pushing him around and stuff. Caesar got mad, ran outside, jumped on him and beat him down. See, that represents, and when he did that, he ran back to the old white man and hugged him, the man that named him. This represents the fact that all BA-KONGO people have fought in every battle in this country. We have fought in the Revolutionary Wars. We have fought in the Civil Wars. We are fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan and all of these wars right now. We fought in every war in this country and have not earned one single right. We have protected the white man in this country every single war and fought for him and loved him for every single thing that he ever wanted us to do, and we have never gained anything back. That's what that represented, why he fought another white man to protect the white man that named him, the white man he loved, his master. See, our people loved our masters, and they would tell on you if you would ever leave and you would ever try to run away, and if you would ever try to go against what master said you could do. This is why the great Dr. Naim Akbar in Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery said only the brave need apply, because the very ones that you try to help, they will be the ones with the slave mentality that would tell master on you. That's what it represents. So from that point on, Caesar had to get locked away in a cell. I think we all know what that means, doesn't need further explanation. But as he was locked away in a cell, he saw a lot that were just like him. He saw other people, he saw other apes in there like him of all kinds, shapes, and all tints of skin. So he went in that cell and drew a picture of his window at home on the wall that the white man allowed him to look out of, allowed him to dream out of. He drew that picture on the wall and he felt like that was his home, and he leaned against it to fall asleep. That was the only way he could sleep, is by the comfort of the white man's allowance to live in his home. So eventually, Caesar, they would let the apes out and they could go play in this little room or whatnot. There was a habitat. And what the habitat represents is it looks kind of like home, but it ain't really home. They set it up kind of like the jungle, but it ain't really the jungle. They set it up like his origins, but it wasn't really his origins. That represents Mu-Kongo, the land Mu-Kongo right now. Every Mu-Kongo person in Afrika is not basically a citizen of Afrika. All of those lands are owned by Europeans and Arabs, and now the Chinese. So it represented that they have set up the habitat for us even at home. But wait a minute now, inside of the home itself, inside of the habitat, they had a cage. This cage was about 12, 15 feet tall with 1,000-pound silverback gorilla in it, a beast. When Caesar opened his cage and his cage was open, he never came out to play. Read my description on the side of my page and you'll understand why he could not come out to play and why he didn't. When he touched the grass, even with the door open, he jumped back in his cage. What that represents is that silverback gorilla, the beast, the monster, meaning the king. That represents the African people living in Africa and who are enslaved in their own land. And they are enslaved in their own land, and their land to them is like a habitat. But they are not allowed to touch ground in their own land, meaning they don't own their own land. Their own land is made by another European. Do you understand? They are viewed by the outside world through glass, which means we have a stigma when we think of African people. When we view African people, we think of flies in the nose. We think of poor. We think of Somalian pirates. And we're not understanding that these people are hungry because the white man and the Arab have taken the food from them. We're not understanding why the Khoi and the San have a 12% education rate in Namibia and in Angola, because the white man has subjugated them as an outcast in their own land. This is what it means that they are viewed through glass, because the world has an image of them and not understand the origin of them. So let's continue. Caesar got into a fight and lost the fight. The thug beat him. We all know what the thug is. We talking about how we are the king of the streets. Yeah, we the king of this and we the king of that. Yeah, my ends, my ends, my ends. Yeah, my B's, my B's, my B. What's up, my B? What's up, my N? You know what I mean? See, the harder you are, the more of a leader you think you are. Caesar didn't fight him. He lost that fight. But wait a minute now. Caesar, after he lost that fight, that thug tore that sweater off of him, that white man's sweater. So as they went back into the room, as they went back into their cage, the white man came in there with a fire hose and hosed Caesar down. Hose him down. We all know about the 50s and 60s. I don't even have to go to what that means as far as the hosing down. You already know he represents the KKK. But the other man, the other one that was with him, he was he kind of looked like the Jew. I'll say he's representing the Jew in a sense. He, I guess, really didn't want to do what he was doing. He didn't want to engage. But also, Caesar saw through that as well, because he realized that they were no different from the rest. He was no different from the other. And I continue. So Caesar, as he was in his cage, now we get into some symbolism here, right here. He was sitting in his cage, and across from him, there was an orangutan. And this orangutan was doing sign. And Caesar said, "You know sign?" And he said, "Circus orangutan." meaning he learned sign, and so he was in a circus. But I want you to notice the positioning of where Caesar was and where the orangutan was. I want you to know the color of Caesar and the color of the orangutan. See, Caesar, when you're looking down the positioning of the camera angles, Caesar is on the east. That represents Africa. And the orangutan was on the west, across the hall or the water, and represents the American native in the world, in the land that you now call America, which was Cameroon. The orangutan had red color skin, hair, skin, I would say. The people of Cameroon had red color skin to dark black color skin. So the orangutan represented the original people of Cameroon, and Caesar represented the original BA-KONGO. You understand? So they were communicating. Now look this up. Columbus and his crew, when they got over to the lands of Cameroon, when he got over here, they realized that they needed all of the people in the beginning of the Ma'afa needed the BA-KONGO people because the European did not understand what these original people of Cameroon were saying. But all of the BA-KONGO did. And they said, even in the notes and the writings of Columbus, he said that they needed the BA-KONGO people to associate and also to communicate with the original people of Cameroon. Same language, same people. This is how Caesar and the orangutan were able to speak to one another. So let's continue on. Every day, Caesar would notice new things, and he would realize new things, and he would plan his getaway. He would learn new enlightenment, such as we do here, and enlightening our peoples into the better light of self, right knowledge. So one day he got angry and he couldn't go. The white man kept saying, I promise you, trust me, I promise you. And he let Caesar down every time. The white man has promised you everything and let you down every time. He has promised you freedom and you are not free yet in 2011, August 22nd. He has promised you voting rights and you cannot vote. They have to vote whether or not you can vote. He has promised you this land, and you are not a citizen of his land. You are considered an artificial person because according to the 3/5 compromise, you are defined by law as an artificial person. So you are not a citizen. And it also said, according to Dred Scott, you will never be a citizen of this country. Abraham Lincoln said the same thing. He said blacks who are free in this country and want to coincide in this country with the whites are being selfish. He said, I suggest to you that you should go to a land similar to that of your own land, such as South or Central America, because of the climate fits your physical condition, because blacks and whites will never exist in the same country together. Abraham Lincoln, Mr. Honest Abe, said that. So what it represented was when he was in there, the white man promised him everything and let him down. So he eventually erased that window off of his wall that he drew that reminded him of the white man's home, which means he erased the view of the world, what he thought was the world, according to what the white man had taught him. And he started to gain his own view of the world, of self.